She was just another alien slave, until one lonely human changed her life forever. The auction house on Perdition's edge stank of fear and desperation. Marcus Thorne pulled his worn jacket tighter around his shoulders, wondering for the 100th time what he was doing in this cesspool of a space station. His retirement fund burned a hole in his pocket, credits meant for repairs to his small transport ship, the Stellar Wanderer, not for whatever madness had drawn him to this place. Through the haze of cheap synthetic tobacco and even cheaper liquor, Marcus watched as various merchandise was paraded across the makeshift stage. His stomach churned at the sight of sentient beings treated like cattle, but something kept him rooted to his spot in the shadows of the crowded room. Then she appeared. Unlike the others who had been brought out before, this alien woman moved with an ethereal grace despite her chains. Her silver-tinted skin seemed to capture and reflect the dim light, and her large, violet eyes held a depth of wisdom that belied her apparent youth. She was Laceran, a species known for their empathic abilities and peaceful nature. Marcus had only ever seen them in historical archives, their home world having closed its borders to outsiders centuries ago. The auctioneer, a corpulent man with cybernetic implants crawling across his face like metallic vines, grabbed her arm roughly. Lot 247, a pure Laceran female. Healthy, young, and completely docile. Imagine the status symbol of having such a rare specimen in your household. Opening bid at 50,000 credits. Marcus felt his hand rise before his brain could catch up with his actions. The woman, no, the slave, turned those haunting violet eyes toward him, and in that moment, something shifted in the universe. 60,000, a voice called out, belonging to a well-dressed merchant whose ring sparkled with ill-gotten gains. 75,000, Marcus countered, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The bidding continued, each increase driving the price higher than Marcus had intended to go. But every time he looked at those eyes, he knew he couldn't stop. This wasn't about charity or heroics, this was about something he couldn't yet name. 150,000 credits, he said finally, nearly emptying his accounts. The merchant who had been bidding against him cursed but stayed silent. Sold. The auctioneer's gavel fell with a sound like destiny. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in a processing room, trying not to think about how routine this all seemed to the station's staff. The woman stood before him, her chains removed but her posture still guarded. Up close, he could see the faint patterns that swirled across her skin, like starlight captured in living form. Your property comes with basic documentation, the processor droned, sliding a tablet across the desk. Name? Marcus cleared his throat. She must have a name already. The processor looked at him with disdain. Previous designations are irrelevant. New owners, new name. Station policy. Looking at the woman, Marcus saw a flicker of something in those violet eyes, a spark of self that hadn't been completely extinguished. Naira, he said softly. Her name is Naira. The processor inputted the information without interest. Designation recorded. Remember, the station bears no responsibility for property damage or loss after point of sale. Next. Marcus guided Naira through the station's corridors, maintaining a respectful distance. She followed silently, her bare feet making no sound on the metal flooring. When they reached the Stellar Wanderer's docking bay, he stopped. I'm Marcus, he said, turning to face her. And I know you probably won't believe this, but you're not my property. He ran a hand through his graying hair, searching for the right words. I couldn't leave you there. The ship's not much, but there's a spare cabin. It's yours, with a lock on the inside. You can stay until we figure something out. Naira's eyes widened slightly, the first real reaction he'd seen from her. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear, with an accent that made her words sound like music. Why? Marcus looked at his ship, then back at her. Because 20 years ago, I lost everything that mattered to me in a pirate raid. Been drifting ever since, telling myself I was content being alone. But watching you up there. He shook his head. Maybe we both need a chance to start over. Naira studied him with those startling eyes, and Marcus wondered if she was using her empathic abilities to read his intentions. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Come on," he said, gesturing toward the ship's airlock. "Let's get you some real clothes and something to eat. Tomorrow's soon enough to figure out the rest." As they boarded the Stellar Wanderer, Marcus caught a glimpse of Naira's face turned upward, watching the stars through the station's transparent dome. For the first time, he saw the ghost of a smile touch her lips, and he knew that whatever consequences came from this impulsive decision, he wouldn't regret it. The ship's engines hummed to life, a sound that had always meant solitude to Marcus. But as he prepared for departure, with Naira safely settled in the medical bay getting checked over by his ship's basic medical scanner, that familiar hum seemed to carry a different promise. Perhaps, he thought, it was the sound of hope. 3 weeks had passed since leaving Perdition's edge, and the Stellar Wanderer drifted through the quiet reaches of the outer rim. Marcus stood in the ship's small galley, watching as Naira cautiously explored the food synthesizer's controls. Her silver fingers hovered over the panel, hesitating before each selection. "You don't need permission," he reminded her gently. "It's your home too, for as long as you want it to be." Naira's violet eyes flickered to his face, then back to the synthesizer. "On my world," she said, her musical accent growing stronger with memory, sharing food was sacred. Family, friends, trusted ones, they would gather at sunset to break bread together. Her fingers finally pressed a sequence, and the machine hummed to life. "The traitors who took me, they used food as punishment or reward." Marcus felt the familiar surge of anger at her captors, but kept his voice steady. "Well, here it's neither. It's just food, and you eat when you're hungry." A small smile graced her features, the third one he'd seen since her arrival. The synthesizer produced what looked like a bowl of luminescent purple soup, steam rising in delicate spirals. "This is curry broth," she explained. Would you share it with me?" Marcus recognized the moment for what it was, a careful step toward trust. "I'd be honored." They sat at the small table, and Naira showed him how to cup the bowl with both hands, letting the warmth seep into his palms before drinking. The broth tasted like starlight might, if starlight had a flavor, bright and somehow ancient at the same time. "My mother made this every evening," Naira said softly, staring into her bowl. "Before the raiders came." She looked up suddenly, her eyes intense. "You lost people too. I can feel it, here." She touched her chest, near her heart. Marcus set his bowl down carefully, memories of his wife Rena and their daughter Rose rising unbidden. "Pirates hit our colony transport. 15 years ago now. I was in the engine room when it happened, trying to give us more speed." His hands clenched. "Wasn't fast enough. That's why you bought me." "It wasn't a question. You couldn't save them, so you saved me instead." "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "But that doesn't make you a replacement or an obligation. You're your own person, Naira. I just want to help you become whoever you choose to be." Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's proximity alert. Marcus moved to the bridge, Naira following quietly behind. The view screen showed a massive cargo vessel approaching, its running lights marking it as a legitimate trader. "Stellar Wanderer, this is the Helios Dawn," a gruff voice came through the comm. "We've got engine trouble. Could use some assistance if you're willing to trade." Marcus glanced at Naira, who had gone very still. Her empathic abilities were stronger now that she was recovering her strength. "What do you sense?" She closed her eyes, concentrating. "They're afraid. Not of us, but something else. There's desperation, but no malice." Her eyes opened. "They're running from something." Marcus keyed the comm. "Helios Dawn, this is Marcus Thorne. Happy to help. What seems to be the trouble?" Over the next few hours, Marcus helped the cargo ship's engineer repair a failing gravitational stabilizer. In exchange, they offered fresh supplies and some actual non-synthesized food. Naira remained in their quarters during the repair, but Marcus could tell she was monitoring the emotional atmosphere of their visitors. When the cargo ship departed, Naira emerged onto the bridge. "They were good people," she said. "But they reminded me, not everyone is. The universe is vast and dark between the stars." "It is," Marcus agreed, setting a course for their next port. "But that's why we keep our lights burning." He gestured to the ship's soft interior illumination. "Speaking of which, I've been meaning to ask, would you like to learn how to pilot?" Naira's expression shifted from surprise to something approaching joy. "You would teach me? Can't think of anyone better to trust with my ship." He patted the co-pilot's seat. "Besides, every good pilot needs a backup. Never know when you might need to save us both." As Naira settled into the chair, her hands ghosting over the controls with the same care she'd shown the food synthesizer, Marcus watched her reflection in the viewscreen. The broken, silent woman from the auction house was slowly falling away, revealing someone stronger underneath. "First lesson," he said, bringing up the navigation display. "How to read the stars." Naira leaned forward, absorbing every word as Marcus explained the basics of stellar navigation. Her questions were thoughtful, precise, showing in quick intelligence that had been hidden beneath layers of trauma. Later that night, as the ship's systems cycled into their rest period, Marcus heard soft singing coming from Naira's cabin. The melody was alien but beautiful, like wind through crystal. He smiled, remembering how Rena used to hum while working in their colony's hydroponics bay. "You'd like her," he whispered to the memory of his wife. "She's finding her way back to life, just like I did." The stellar wanderer continued its journey through space, carrying its two healing souls toward whatever destiny awaited them among the stars. And if the ship's lights burned a little brighter that night, well, sometimes hope had a way of illuminating the darkness. The warning came too late. Marcus stared at the sensor readings in disbelief as the massive solar storm bore down on the stellar wanderer. Waves of charged particles lit up the view screen like an angry aurora, beautiful and deadly. "Naira," he called out, his hands flying over the controls. "I need you on the bridge now." She appeared within seconds, her silver skin seeming to ripple in the strange light. 2 months of pilot training had taught her to read the situation instantly. "The shield generators won't hold against that intensity," she said, sliding into the co-pilot's seat. "No," Marcus agreed grimly. "We need to find shelter, fast." He pointed to a cluster of readings. "There's an asteroid field about 20 minutes out. If we can reach it. The radiation will mask our presence," Naira finished, already plotting the course. Her fingers moved with growing confidence across the navigation panel. "But the debris. Better than being cooked alive." Marcus engaged the engines at full thrust. "I'll fly, you monitor the shields. Reroute power from everything non-essential." They worked in synchronized silence as the storm approached. Naira's training combined with her natural empathic abilities created an almost supernatural awareness between them. When Marcus needed a system adjusted, she was already doing it. When she spotted a danger, he was already correcting course. The first wave hit them just as they reached the asteroid field. The ship shuddered violently, alarms screaming from multiple systems. "Shield capacity at 40%. Naira called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Port generator is failing." Marcus threaded the ship between two massive rocks, using them as cover. "Transfer power from weapons to the port shield. We won't need guns in here anyway." A second wave slammed into them, stronger than the first. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as more systems failed. Through the view screen, they could see smaller asteroids being pushed by the solar winds, turning their shelter into a shooting gallery. "Marcus." Naira's voice held an edge of revelation. "The Laceran meditation chambers, they were lined with crystalline matrices to amplify our natural abilities. What if we did the same with the shields?" "What do you mean?" "The deflector array, it uses crystal focuses to shape the energy field. If I can link directly to the system." She hesitated. It's dangerous. But I might be able to sense the storm's patterns, anticipate the waves. Marcus wanted to refuse. The idea of putting her at risk made his chest tight. But one look at her determined face told him she wasn't asking permission. She was stating a fact. Tell me what you need. Working quickly, they modified the co-pilot station, connecting the shield controls directly to the neural interface normally used for fine-tuning sensor arrays. Naira placed her hands on the crystals, and her eyes began to glow with an inner light. I can feel it, she whispered. The storm, it's like music, but made of fire. There's a rhythm to it. Marcus watched in amazement as she began to move their remaining shield power in perfect concert with the solar waves. Instead of trying to block the energy, she let it flow around them, like water around a stone. Asteroid cluster approaching starboard, he warned, spotting a dangerous collection of rocks being pushed by the storm. I see it, Naira responded, her voice distant. Third gap from the bottom. Wait for my signal, now. Marcus piloted them through an opening he would have missed on his own, trusting her guidance completely. They emerged into a relatively calm pocket within the field, protected by a massive asteroid above them. For 3 hours they danced this deadly waltz, Naira reading the storm's patterns while Marcus kept them from being crushed. When the final wave passed and the all-clear sounded, she slumped in her chair, exhausted but smiling. That was. She started to say, then swayed dangerously. Marcus caught her before she could fall, lowering her gently to the deck. Easy there, Starlight. I've got you. Her violet eyes focused on his face, and something shifted in their depths. The nickname he'd used without thinking seemed to hang in the air between them. Her hand reached up to touch his cheek, cool fingers tracing the line of an old scar. You do have me, she said softly. And I've got you. The moment stretched, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then the ship's computer chimed, announcing multiple systems requiring immediate attention. Reality reasserted itself, but something had changed. Something neither of them could deny any longer. Marcus helped her to her feet, letting his hand linger on her arm longer than necessary. Rest, he said. I'll handle the repairs. We'll handle them together, she corrected him, her strength already returning. I'm not going anywhere. As they worked through the night, replacing burned-out circuits and realigning shield generators, Marcus found himself watching her. The way she moved, the quiet confidence she developed, the inner light that seemed to shine through her silver skin, she was no longer the broken creature he'd rescued. She was his partner, his friend, and possibly something more. The storm had done more than test their skills. It had swept away the last barriers between them, revealing a truth that both thrilled and terrified him. As Naira caught him watching and smiled, Marcus realized that some storms didn't destroy. Some storms cleared the air, making room for new growth, new possibilities. And somewhere in the distance, another storm was brewing, one that would test not just their skills, but their hearts as well. The market on New Horizon Station should have been safe. That's what Marcus kept telling himself as he raced through the crowded corridors, his heart pounding. The message from Naira had been brief, just 2 words, they're here. He knew exactly who they were. The same traffickers who had originally captured her, now tracking down their lost property. They'd been careless, too comfortable after 4 months of peaceful trading. New Horizon was supposed to be legitimate, regulated. But money could bypass any regulation. Marcus spotted them before they saw him, 3 figures in expensive suits that didn't quite hide their predatory nature. They were leading Naira away from the main market, her silver skin dulled by fear. But there was something else in her bearing, something that gave him pause. She caught his eye across the crowd and gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. She had a plan. Trusting her, Marcus followed at a distance. The traffickers led Naira to a private docking bay where a sleek shuttle waited. As they approached the shuttle's ramp, she stumbled, falling to her knees. Clumsy merchandise, one trafficker sneered, reaching down to grab her arm. That's when Naira moved. Months of helping Marcus with ship repairs had strengthened her, and his self-defense lessons had taught her well. She twisted, using the trafficker's momentum against him, sending him sprawling. Her hand found the neural disruptor on his belt, the same type they'd once used to control her. Marcus burst from his hiding place as Naira fired the disruptor, dropping a second trafficker. The third drew a weapon, but Marcus was faster, years of space frontier life having honed his reactions. The trafficker fell, stunned. "You okay?" Marcus asked, reaching for Naira. She stepped into his embrace without hesitation. "I knew you'd come. But I also knew I couldn't keep depending on you to save me." "That was one hell of a risk," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Worth it," she replied. "They'll never stop hunting me unless they learn I'm not prey anymore." She looked up at him, violet eyes fierce. "And I needed to prove something to myself. And to you." "To me?" "That I choose you. Not because you rescued me, not because I owe you, but because." The shot came from behind them. A fourth trafficker, hidden in the shuttle. Marcus felt the impact throw him forward, fire spreading across his back. He heard Naira scream, felt her try to catch him as he fell. Through darkening vision, he saw her face transform with rage and determination. Silver light seemed to pulse from her skin as she reached out with both her mind and the neural disruptor. The fourth trafficker screamed, overwhelmed by the combined assault of empathic energy and neural disruption. The last thing Marcus heard before consciousness fled was Naira calling for emergency medical help, her voice managing to be both terrifying and tender at once. "Stay with me," she whispered. "I didn't find love again just to lose it." Then darkness took him, and the world faded away. Marcus woke to the soft beeping of medical monitors and the sensation of cool fingers intertwined with his. He opened his eyes to find Naira seated beside his bed in the station's medical bay, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "You're still here," he murmured. "Always," she replied, squeezing his hand. "Though you did try your best to leave me." "What happened?" "The station authorities arrested the traffickers. When they learned who they were, there were apparently quite a few outstanding warrants. And..." She smiled, a fierce expression that transformed her face. "I may have provided evidence of their entire operation. It seems my empathic abilities let me absorb quite a bit of information during my captivity. Information I've now shared with the proper authorities." Marcus tried to sit up but thought better of it as pain lanced through his back. "You're dismantling their entire network." "They thought they broke me," Naira said quietly. "They never realized they were teaching me how to break them instead." She stood, moving to the window that looked out over the station's main promenade. "The authorities found 11 other captives in their ship's hold. They're being returned to their homes." "And what about your home?" Marcus asked the question that had haunted him since the beginning. "Now that you're truly free, will you return to Lasara?" Naira turned back to him, starlight seeming to dance across her skin. "I've been thinking about that. About home." She returned to his bedside, taking his hand again. "The Lasarans have a saying, home is not where you were born, but where you choose to build your light." She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his in an intimate Lasaran gesture. "I choose you, Marcus Thorne. I choose our ship, our life among the stars. If..." She hesitated for the first time, "If you'll have me." Marcus reached up with his free hand, cupping her face. "I've been yours since the moment I saw you," he admitted. "I just didn't want you to feel obligated." "Not obligated," she whispered. "Blessed." And she kissed him, her lips cool and sweet against his. 3 weeks later, the Stellar Wanderer prepared for launch from New Horizon Station. Its systems had been upgraded, its hull reinforced. But the biggest changes were inside. The co-pilot's chair was now permanently modified to accommodate Lasaran neural interfaces. The galley synthesizer had been programmed with an extensive database of Lasaran cuisine. And the captain's quarters, well, they weren't just the captain's quarters anymore. Marcus stood on the bridge, watching Naira run through the pre-flight checklist. She moved with complete confidence now, as much the ship's captain as he was. More than that, she was his partner in every sense of the word. Course plotted, she announced. The distress call from the mining colony in the outer rim sounds legitimate. They need medical supplies. And if we happen to find any other trafficking operations out there? Marcus asked, already knowing the answer. Naira's violet eyes gleamed. Then we shut them down. No one should live in chains. As they lifted off, Marcus watched their joined reflection in the view screen. A retired human pilot who'd found purpose again. A former slave who'd become a warrior for justice. An unlikely pair, brought together by fate and bound together by choice. You know, he said, reaching for her hand, we never did decide what to call ourselves. Traders? Rescue operators? Vigilantes? Naira laughed, the sound like crystal chimes in the bridge. How about just family? The stellar wanderer rose into the starfield, carrying its crew toward whatever adventure awaited. And if anyone noticed that the ship seemed to glow with an inner light, well, that's what happens when love and justice find a home among the stars. The lost had been found. The broken had been mended. And in the vast darkness of space, two souls had created their own constellation, a light that would guide others home. It wasn't the end of their story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. But it was their beginning, written in starlight and sealed with a promise, wherever the path led, they would face it together. Some chains are made of metal, easily broken. Others are made of fear, harder to shatter. But the strongest chains of all are those we choose freely, the bonds of love, trust, and shared purpose that transform us from what we were into what we can become. And somewhere in the endless night, a silver-skinned woman and her human partner sailed between the stars, their light burning bright against the darkness, their love a beacon for all those still searching for their way home.